Hey guys!
Welcome to 10.7.
We'll help Mrs. Venner out here writing and graph equations of circles.
Circles. So, we've got some basic lesson objectives that you can read there below. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to write equations of circles in the coordinate plane, and you're going to be able to graph circles giving their equation. So, Mrs. O'Brien, take it away.
What is a circle? You've got a beautiful example right here, but a circle by definition is all the points in a two-dimensional plane that are equidistant from a point. Mrs. Venner, what does equidistant mean?
I think that means they're all the same distance. So, equal distance, equidistance.
And what is that distance called?
The radius. So we could even say more specifically what kind of point they have to be equidistant from.
That is the center.
Center.
Because there is no middle of a circle. Third hour.
And Monsieur.
There is a center of the circle. So what we're going to do is give you the standard form equation of a circle. The standard form equation of a circle is x minus h quantity squared plus the quantity of y minus k squared equals r squared. R should look familiar because it's that distance, that equidistance from that point, the center point. This is your radius. So the right hand is the radius squared. That is from your center point out to another point on the circle. This h and k, these are new. These are the coordinates of the center of the circle. H, k. And you really need to pay attention to the equation because in the equation it has x minus h, but the x coordinate of the center is positive h. So the actual coordinate for the center is the opposite of what you see. So here is our center at hk, and it's giving us a coordinate point xy, some point on the circle. So that's that. Just like a linear equation has y equals mx plus b, the only numbers that we substitute in there are m, which is the
slope,
and b, which is the
y-intercept.
When we have x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared, there's three numbers we're plugging in. We're plugging in a value for h, we're plugging in a value for k, and we're plugging in a value for r. X and y should still be in the equation. If not, you're not going to quite have a circle. You're going to have a parabola or a linear equation. This formula comes straight from a triangle formula that you might be familiar with. We hope a little Pythagorean theorem. If I make a right triangle out of this, my hypotenuse, the c, is my radius. So that's why the equation equals r squared. The height is the change in my y values. So my leg right here is y minus k. What do you know? Y minus k. And my other leg down here is the change in my x values, the shifting horizontally. So that's x minus h. So leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So this formula doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from the Pythagorean theorem.
It's magic.
It is. Whoa.
All right, so we're going to try a couple of these, some basic examples. So it says write the equations for the following graph. So we're going to start with this first one. And just like Mrs. O'Brien just showed you in that last equation, there's two things that we really need. We really need the center and we really need the radius. Because once we have those two things, then we can plug them in for our h and our k and our r. So if we're looking here, the center of the circle, we kind of have to look and figure out maybe what the diameter is first. So if I look diameter, we're going across, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 4 across, which means the radius would be what, Mrs. O'Brien?
2.
2. So if I go 2 to the center of the circle, Monsieur, center, third hour, center, okay? The center of the circle there is 0, 0. And Mrs. O'Brien, what did we find our radius to be?
2.
2. So now we can simply plug that into that set circle equation. And remember, it's x minus
H.
squared plus y minus
K.
squared equals
R.
squared. All right, so we've got x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 2 squared. Do not forget to square the radius. We like to do that all the time. Now, just looking at that, there's a lot of simplification we can do here because x minus 0 is just
X.
x. So we can simplify that down to x squared. We can simplify y minus 0 down to y squared. And then we know that 2 squared is
4.
4. So there is my equation for my circle. So now if I were you, what I would do is I would pause this video for a second and go ahead and try the second one on your own. When you think you have it, go ahead and restart it and listen to the next part.
Yeah, you know How I Met Your Mother? Oh, welcome back, guys. Mrs. Benner and I were just talking about the series finale of How I Met Your Mother. It was a good one.
It was a doozy.
We don't want to ruin it for you. But here is your equation that Mrs. Benner wrote down for you. The center is at 0, 0. The radius is at 6, so plugging in the formula for h, k, and r, x minus 0 squared plus the quantity of y minus 0 squared equals 6 squared. So simplified, x squared plus y squared equals 36. Give yourself a pat on the back if you did that right.
Bravo, bravo. All right, so that's the first kind of problem you're going to see. The second problem you're going to see is when you not only do you need to write the equation, but then you're also going to need to graph it. So it says write the standard equation of the circle with center 0, -5, and a radius of 4. And then graph it. So let's start with that. We know that this is our h, this is our k, and the 4 is our r. So again, using that equation, we can plug all of our numbers in. X minus h, which is 0, squared, plus y. Now here's the tricky part because we've got minus a -5 squared equals our radius squared, which would be 4 squared. So we do some simplification here. X minus 0 is just x, so I've got x squared plus. Now be careful here. Whenever you have minus a negative, that becomes plus a positive. So really inside these parentheses, you should have y plus 5 squared equals 4 squared is 16. Now, also on something like this, some people ask, do I have to FOIL this? Please do not. You leave it like that. That's as far as you have to go as simplification-wise. So this is your equation for your circle. Then you have to graph it. So we start with, we know our center is at 0, -5. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that point. Okay. And then my radius is at 4. So I'm going to go 4 out in all directions. So I'm going to go 4 to the right. I'm going to go 4 up. I'm going to go 4 to the left. And 4 down. And then I'm going to draw in a circle. And I'm not going to use a circle tool, and it's going to be a good circle. I'm feeling really good about this circle.
Or a diamond.
Listen. So, you have your circle, and it's a beautiful circle.
And you've got your equation. So you're done with the problem. Huzzah! So let's try another one. This one has the point on the circle at -3, 4 and a center at -1, 2. Well, my center is my HK, But Mrs. Benner, they didn't give me a radius.
Crap.
Oh my goodness. So what are we gonna do?
We have to find the radius.
How do we find a radius?
Well, if we go from the center to a point on the circle, that would be the radius, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right. So all we have to do is find the distance. Our r is going to equal our distance formula. So distance equals the square root of x sub 2. Does it matter which one I pick?
I don't think so, as long as you're consistent.
All right. So negative 3 minus negative 1 quantity squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 quantity squared. So 2 negatives in a row, we just saw that, both plus a positive. So the square root of negative 3 plus 1 squared plus 4 minus 2 is 2 squared. So the square root, negative 3 plus 1 gives me negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. Positive 4 plus positive 4 is the square root of 8. Oh, we can simplify that.
Yes, we can.
There's a perfect square that goes into it.
Heyo!
So my radius is 2 square root 2. Woo! Nice. So I've got my h, I've got my k, I've got my r. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals my radius squared. Running off the page. All right, 2 negatives in a row. It's our favorite thing today. So x plus 1 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared equals, square the number in front, and I have to square a radical. So that crosses that off. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is
8. That's a really funny looking 8. Almost as good as my circle.
Almost. But not quite.
All right, so last kind of problem you're going to see, and then we've got another fun doozy for you. But it says the equation of a circle is x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 16. We want to graph the circle. Remember, in order to graph the circle, we're going to need the center and we're going to need the radius. The easiest thing to find is our radius. And remember, whenever we have these circle equations, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So 16 is my r squared. So in order to find my r, I have to square root both sides. So I know my radius has to be 4. Then, in order to find my center, I got to take a look at these numbers that are inside there. And as Mrs. O'Brien said at the start of this lesson, make sure you always take the opposite sign of what's in here. So my center, instead of it being negative 2, my center should be at positive 2, negative 3. So again, it's the opposite of these signs. So I go ahead and graph it. 2, negative 3. And my radius, I go 4 in all directions. And of course, I get to draw the circle.
I thought it, I just didn't say it. It's like we finish each other's.
Sandwiches.
That's what I was going to say.
That's a good circle.
All right, one more problem. You bury a time capsule and you use a grid to write down the directions for finding it. Because you've got to find it when you are old. So use the following measurements to find the burial location of the time capsule. So what we're going to do is pause this and give you a second to see if you can try and figure out this problem. All right, so as you can see, we got an answer of -8, -8, because if I draw the centers at each of the respective points and my awesome circle skills,
That's enough.
drawing circles with the radii, you get one solution where it has to be. And they do this when they're triangulating cell phone towers when they're trying to find criminals.
They do.
Watch your castle, you'll find out.
They do, yeah. And it's -8, +8, Mrs. O'Brien, not -8 and -8.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what you wrote too.
I know. All right, guys, have a good night.
Don't forget to do your homework.
Take your notes.